Hello everyone. Today we're working on easy embeds. This is the first in a 3-part series on different types of embeds and how to effectively embed them into your soap. An embed is anything you are putting, in the soap world anyway, anything you're putting into your soap that is not like an ingredient, which we shouldn't really be putting a lot of ingredients in our soap anyway, but it's not a fragrance oil, it's not a colorant, it's something else. So today is all soap embeds, nothing like there's all kinds of different ones that are not soap, like paper or sponges or loofah sponges or loofah pieces, etc. Nothing like that. It's just soap. And I'm going to try to stick to some real easy ones today. There's a lot to talk about, so I'm sorry if I go a little bit faster than usual. I want to cover it all, everything that's on here. You'll see some footage from some of my older soaps, and I'm really not going to be dwelling on what colors I'm using, what soap types, etc. It's just how you do these. So these are crystals. You've seen me do these probably, I don't know, 10 times if you watch all my videos. If you got the gist of how I was cutting, I showed very carefully at the beginning how I angle the knife to get these cuts to look more like crystals and less just like chunks of soap. In a moment I am going to do chunks of soap, but here I'm even picking them up to kind of show you how they catch the light more like a natural crystal rather than just soap chunks. So once you get those angles with the first cuts or so, first or second, larger cuts, if you want smaller ones, all you have to do is cut straight at this point, and you're going to have still enough angles on it that they will show up as crystals. Each one of the types of soap I'm showing you, or embeds, will show up in a picture soon. And I'm not putting them all at the end. I'm putting them kind of in between in little groups. So when you see the pictures, don't turn it off. There's more to come. So this is recycling, and basically I'm calling these terrazzo embeds. You could use them for so much more, but I use them to make terrazzo soaps, and I'm cutting up some soaps I don't like. This is again a video earlier on, but I'm just cutting up some soaps I'm no longer using. The thing to consider anytime you're recycling soaps, and I do talk about this in a couple other videos, is you want to of course, you're looking at the colors that you want to keep together, but also the fragrances. So if you're adding fragrance to the to what you're embedding it in, the base soap, you must have something. Well, I must, but you should have something that goes along with the fragrance notes of the soaps you just cut up, and they should at least go together. They don't have to match exactly, but they should complement one another. All right, here it is. This is my shredder. Several people have asked, what do I use to shred my soaps with? This is it. I love it. You probably can't find one. It's a Pampered Chef veggie shaver or something like that. There, you can just use a regular cheese grater if you like. Please don't use one that's been used with cheese. If you want the larger type shreds like I have, just find a cheese grater with larger holes. They have those kind of rectangular-ish ones, box type, that have several different sizes. Those are always kind of cool, and will usually work just fine for soap. But this is the one I like, and I use it the most frequently. I have done a finer shave of several soaps. Something to keep in mind, the size of the curls or shaves or shreds you get is going to change the temperature in which you can put the soap or your base soap. I usually, with exception of what I do later in this video, I usually will put the soap in first and then the embeds for various reasons. One is that they will prevent the soap sometimes from going underneath them, and you'll get these little holes-ish, or bare spots where there's no base soap, and I just don't like that. And the other thing is when you're putting them in large amounts like this, also remember that it will drop the temperature quickly. So it's not recommended to put in a handful and then wait and put in another handful and you want to try to get them in there quickly and move them where you want them, because it's going to cool the soap very quickly. Again, these are just old soaps that I either no longer carry in my line, or what you're about to see me chop up next or shred in a minute is some of the soaps that I use to demonstrate different techniques for you in the videos that I make. So some of those aren't even fragranced at all. But the soaps on the right, the soaps that I'm working on now on the right, those are a little bit of a floral fruity, and they work really well together. And the ones on the left are a little bit warmer. There's a little bit of an amber and a little honey kind of fragrance in there. But again, they work as one. So that's something you want to consider. I know I mentioned it already, but as I'm working on the two piles there, I wanted you to understand why I have two different piles. The next one's pretty simple. I made that block of black soap in the mold you see up above me, the pink one. And that's when you want an intentional, specific color. That's how I make my neon shreds. And speaking of my neon shreds, here they are. And although I don't use the little rectangle mold when I'm making a large amount, and I mean really large amount, I will use my big purple loaf molds. They're not huge as far as loaf molds go, but they're the wider, shorter ones. You see one up in the far left corner just sitting there for no apparent reason. The footage in this video, you're going to see a lot of little table quakes because I'm chopping a lot of things. But you'll also see a lot of different things. It's very cluttered today, and I'm sorry, that's just the way I had to do it. I wanted to get out and have handy all of the things I wanted to show you. Some of this, like this, is an older footage, so it's just what it was in that video. But the main one where I'm making my last soap, this one I'm just showing you because what you saw a second ago me cutting up was embeds embedded into a soap, and now we are embedding those embeds into another soap. So that's just something you can do for a little added texture into your embeds. There are many different ways you can color your embeds other than just pouring a plain single color of soap. You'll see me swirl it in a little bit, and you've seen me use the shreds to add color and texture. And in the next video that I'm doing, you'll also see me painting some embeds with mica, and that's another way to control the color of your embeds. So this one, I just showed you that little ice cube tray. That is an ice cube tray. I'll use another one in the next segment of this video. But these are just cute little hexagons, and I slice them up because I like to layer them, which you will see the but a picture of that soap coming up soon. I'm not great at slicing them. They don't have to be perfect for what I'm doing. Because I'm doing a layered look, and they're not having to lie flat because they're embedded into soap in different layers. So there, and here's pictures for the last set I just did. These are what the crystals look like. These, I'm showing you several different ways that I use them. I use them in a more exposed way in this soap, making a geode. And here's my terrazzo. This is my favorite terrazzo soap that I've ever made. I absolutely love this one. And it was recycling some soaps that I did not like. And these were kind of a terrazzo, but a little bit more chunky. They were using up some swirls that didn't work for me, but they looked great when I chopped them smaller, so that's what I did. These are all the neon shredded soaps, which were for a wholesale account. That's why I made so many neon shreds. And that's the same thing in clear. You can layer the colors of the shredded soaps, or you could layer the colors of the chunks too. So many different ways to get a variety of effects. That's just in clear soap. This are the little bitty chopped ones. When you saw me chopping those shreds, these are the kind of soaps I make with those. Usually something like a crystal or a stone, something like that when I want a really tiny confetti look. But I have used them in other soaps. And then these are just plain shreds with a little bit of glitter in my Christmas trees. And here are the hexagons. I love the way these soaps came out. I haven't done any more in a while, but I may go back and do it because they came out really cute, I think. Okay, so here's the 2-color embeds I'm making. And I'm just, not pouring too hot. And I also just wanted to show you, you can use some of your other soaps that are used for other things to create embeds sometimes. That's just the massage bar. And this is my other ice mold that I use frequently. It's a little ice ball mold. I just found it on Amazon. Wasn't too expensive. And I've used that for so many different reasons. I needed little ball shapes. I can't even count them up. But planets is one that I use it for frequently. I've used it to create a bubble look, bubbles, snowman heads, variety of things. But I'm just kind of alternatingly pouring the colors. You want to move sort of fast so that you're not setting up fully one color before the next. And then here I'm double pouring. I have a feeling I heated that up a little bit and a little too much, but they ended up working anyway. But you just always, when you're swirling, you want to keep the temperatures low. All I'm doing with this white gunk here, which is just titanium dioxide dispersed in glycerin, is I'm just giving a very tiny swirl, the smallest amount I can get on the top of the toothpick. And you'll see in the finished soaps, I think you'll be able to see it a little better than when I hold these up to the camera, because I didn't really get a good shot of them there. But it just gives a little extra swirl for the planet soaps, because that's what I was going for with these. And these you'll see me, I use the larger ones in another soap I haven't done a tutorial for yet, which is my, excuse me, my larger Galaxy soaps, Galaxy Adventure. I will be doing that soon. I've been out of those for a while, and I've just been putting off making a tutorial for that one because it's just, there's a lot of working parts to it. So this is typically how I use the little pieces from the massage bars. I use them for other things as well when I want that shape that is a little wider at the bottom. But for these, I just wanted it to look like a half circle. And that's how I get my tiny planets. And I've used them for other things as well, I believe. Oh yeah, I make my little poop eyeballs with those too. I'll demo those one day for you. This is a fondant cutter. It's a great way to make embeds. If you have not used fondant cutters, you should look into it. You might want to look for mini fondant cutters on Amazon. You'll find a bunch and they're cheap. Okay, this is the bucket. This is pull the leftover soap after it sets up out of the bucket and use it in a variety of soaps. So this one that I use it in, you'll see in a minute, it's a rainbow crystal scrap soap that I made. I've had some people say they've had difficulty pulling it out. Just so you know, it doesn't always work for me every single time, but I'd say about, 70 to 80% of the time I can get a good skin sort of out of the bucket. And maybe someday I'll do a full tutorial on some tips on how to do that. So here you see both the planets and the stars working together in my Galaxy soaps. This is the older one. Those are the larger ones, and the picture's terrible. And then I use the stars also in little Christmas trees and other holiday items sometimes. Here's the rainbow scrap soap. So these were the pieces I pulled out of the bucket, and I thought they came out really cool. Here's one you probably haven't seen before, but it's the same technique. I just put them in an oval soap instead. And this kind of just demonstrates here. I mean, we are going to make one right now, a little skull soap. But this is showing that you see those bags. Those are very large Ziplocs, not filled, but about halfway or a third by now, with shredded soap. And that's what you get when you're using the, and there's Mr. Soap, Mr. Soaps and such, saying hi. For those of you who missed him, I do keep bags of some of the colors separate because I like to do things like this, where it's a holiday theme or a certain color theme that I am going for. But I also have a very large box, a plastic sealed box with the rainbow, my rainbow combo, which is every color from the Mad Mica's color collection. You notice I'm not putting anything on screen today with colorants or fragrances, and that's because it's kind of irrelevant for this particular tutorial, because we're just talking about embeds and different types. And there I'm checking my temperature because it's real easy when you're doing smaller soaps like this to melt your shreds. So you want to be aware of what... I'm so sorry. I have got something going on in my throat right now. Okay, sip of water and on we go. You want to be aware of what your temperature is. What is the melting point of your soap? You want to go right at it, maybe a little bit above, but not by much. I'm pretty sure for this, I poured it at like 126, and the melting temperature of these is around between 120 and 125. A little tip that I kind of keep in the back of my mind when I'm using embeds, I like to let them sit a little bit, dry out, air out, whatever you want to call it, before I use them. You could call it curing because it does remove some of the water from them when they're sitting out. It stabilizes them a little bit more and makes it a little less difficult, or a little less easy for them to melt, I should say. But I still like to keep the temperature like right around that melting point. You don't want to do it too cool, because as it hits all those embeds, again, it's going to cool more, and then it's not going to flow down to the bottom of the mold and get underneath those. Like I say, I usually put soap and then embeds, but in this particular mold, that's impossible. So I'm just kind of taking a chance. And some of them, you'll see in the end pictures, some of them just barely started to melt a little bit, but it was enough. And it was fine and it worked. It didn't like cloud the soap or anything. Just gave a couple of little trails here and there, which is another point about, and we'll get more into creating the soaps with embeds in my next couple of embed videos. But something to keep in mind, you don't want to move them around a lot. You see me shaking here in these a little bit, rolling this. I'm basically trying to roll the soap down so it gets under those. But in general, you want to try to place it correctly the first time and not have to move your embeds around. That is a surefire way to have little trails and melting areas of your soaps. So try to place it like really carefully where you want it. Sometimes you can turn it a little. You might notice I do that in my koi fish soaps as I'm making them, but I'm barely pouring a layer. It's hot. It's a hot layer, but there's barely any soap in it. And the first thing I do is spritz with alcohol. So I'm cooling it as fast as I can. I'm pouring it hot to stick to the layer underneath it, and then spritzing so it doesn't melt the embed. And we'll do more of that when you see me doing some embed layering, which I will do. These are a little tricky. Sorry if you're hearing sirens. They're not at our house. But these are a little tricky to work with. You always want to tap these, even if you're just pouring a single color, or you will get bubbles at the back. And you also want to overfill. You want to intentionally overfill these, because a lot of times as those bubbles are popping and coming up, and they will continue to do so, I usually come back and add a couple of little more drips in the hole as it goes, because if all of the bubbles start popping and coming up, and then you end up with a hole, and I'd rather have a little part to cut off, which is very easy to just slice off, than to have a big hole. Most of the soaps you make with molds like this that are two-parter, you're going to have a little bit of a seam. Not much. It comes off. You saw with that knife, I didn't really even need to use the knife. I could have probably just run over my finger with it. It was that minor of a bit of soap. But there, I'm cutting off the little nub at the back and just cleaning it up a little bit. But there, They're not the easiest molds in the world to work with, but they come out really cool, and I kind of think they're worth it. One of the things I find easy, not easy, but helpful with these is to keep it pouring continuously. Try not to pour and stop and pour and stop, and pour it kind of slowly. You want it to be steady, but if you pour too fast, you're going to end up with it just exploding out the top. So here are these little guys, and again, notice the clutter. Notice all the soaps all over the place. I had so many things I wanted to show you embed wise, and I just tried to cram too much into one video, to be honest with you. But these are the little skulls made with the neon shreds. I think they came out really cute. I'm going to include them in my Halloween line, so I'll be making some more in some other colors. I plan to use those black shreds in a couple of them because I think those would look really cool for Halloween. I may do a black and orange. I'm not sure yet. I think at the back of that soap you could see a few of those little trails I was talking about because I poured it probably about 1 degree hotter than I should have. And sometimes it comes down to that, to a very small difference, one or 2 degrees, that can go from either melting your embeds or just perfectly encompassing them, which is what you really want to do. I have wanted to melt them on purpose sometimes, so there's that too. And I couldn't resist because I am weird. So there you go. I had to have them kiss. They came out pretty cute. Hey, this was kind of it felt like a marathon. So I'm sure I left a lot of things out. Please feel free to ask me questions. You know where to find me. You can comment and ask questions in the comment section here. If you're in any of the same soap groups as me, you can comment when I post this in the groups as well. Some weird little bits in the pictures here that are showing up as kind of shadows that aren't there. If you see anything that looks brown, it's not in the real actual video. I think you saw that in the video part. It's not in the actual soap. It just looks weird on the pictures. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate your time, and I hope that this has been helpful in some way to you. And I will see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.